Welcome to the Religiously Offensive Podcast.
My question. Should we hit the Google?
You got the pewter.
I do.
Yeah. Hit that duck, duck, go, bro.
I got the pewt.
You got the pew.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
is not taxed?
What is not?
No.
Yeah.
So-
what type of products are not taxed?
Okay, can we go back to like tampons are actually taxed though?
They
have a specific tax.
No,
well,
it's
not a
just sales.
specific tax, but some things
They don't have a tax
aren't
exemption,
taxed.
I guess
Yeah,
we'll say.
they should have a
Oh.
tax exemption.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah, I don't think there's any.
What things are tax exempt?
toilet paper, you pay tax on that.
Oh.
Yeah.
But in
you-
general, clothing, groceries, medicines, medical devices, and industrial equipment are sales tax exempt in many states.
Yeah,
But
now
not
look
in
up,
every
is
state.
Are tampons taxed?
Some states are still anal about their tax though.
Yeah,
on every-
Ohio was different. I
Ohio
don't
was
remember
pretty
what.
good. Like
when I
takeout
visited-
fast food was not taxed.
When I visited
30 of the
Oregon,
50
nothing was
states.
taxed.
30 of the 50 states, they
Wow.
are indeed sales tax.
You could roll into McDonald's with one crisp dollar bill and nothing more, and you could secure a double cheeseburger.
You sure-
'cause
you
it
sure
was
You know what made me
not-
so
it
mad?
was not taxed.
When I
Despite
moved to
that
Florida,
drinks were, though.
when I moved to Florida to go to Full Sail, right?
Full send.
I was always like, all right, a poor college kid, like I can eat on $3. I go to
Yeah.
Wendy's, 2 JBCs, chicken nuggets. You know what I'm saying?
Now it's the faux
That's the way it is, right?
Or
I go
Taco
there,
Bell.
Shout out
with
Wendy's.
$3, and all of a sudden it's like $3.16 or something. And I'm like, I don't have change. Like,
Yeah.
what is happening right now? Like, and I just felt like I was gonna starve.
Wait, that's not a thing.
And then
in
I didn't
Ohio?
have AC either. And you know, you're not cooled off when you're not moving in a car without AC.
Dude,
It's miserable. I'm sitting in the
Story of my
drive-through, can't get out. I know that I'm going to starve because I don't have enough money from what they said, and I'm also have no AC.
Wait, so does it say?
30 of the 50 states that is taxed despite efforts to ban it.
Yeah.
You talking about tampon tax still?
Yeah.
Tampon taxed.
Oh wow, that's
Should we
incredible.
say in Florida? Let's see.
I didn't know there was a specific
I
tax
think-
for that.
Well, there's not a specific tax. It's just some states tax.
Yeah, that's what I
those,
meant.
Some
I
states
didn't-
don't.
Like-
Oh, here you
Well,
go.
I didn't know there was a specific like topic that
I didn't either.
shouldn't be taxed.
Governor Rick Scott, 2017, created a $180 million tax cut package, which included eliminating the tampon tax in Florida.
So no longer taxing.
That is correct.
Okay,
Effective January 28th.
Shout out Rick Scott, bro.
Shout out Rick
Let's
Scott.
go.
shout out Rick
That
Scott.
beautiful bald man.
Amen.
DeSantis can get it, but Rick Scott, he's Gucci.
Rick Scott, he's still a senator.
I got you, Ron.
And not get it in the good way.
He's still senator. He's a good guy.
Rick Scott, senator.
Yeah, I reached out to
DeSantis is
him
the governor.
about-
the governor.
About like companies from outside of the country buying these houses and driving up all the prices for locals.
You did?
You just
I
called
emailed
him?
him. Yeah,
Like
and-
BlackRock, all that
You
nonsense.
responded?
Well, it's just from out of the country. Like there's companies in like Canada buying houses in Florida,
Right.
driving up the price of houses. You know what I'm saying? Like, and this
Yeah.
probably happens in other states too.
You'll own
Florida's the
nothing and
most
be happy, bro.
expensive
This is
state
1984 happening.
To rent or own a house in right now.
I heard about an article that came out with that, and they used some example in Naples, which I don't feel like is fair. But I like, it
Zillow
can't be
thinks
more
my house
expensive than
almost doubled
California,
in
unless
value.
you're saying
It's
relatively
absurd.
speaking, unless like has had the greatest increases over what typical CPI is or whatever.
Right.
I mean, CPI. That's probably not the same
No.
thing. That has to do with inflation.
Hawaii is the most expensive state to live in.
Yeah, for sure.
That makes sense.
Makes sense.
Everything's
Nearly
$1 million.
twice the national average.
It's crazy.
But that, yeah.
You got to get everything from off the island.
Oh, wow. Florida's not even the top 5.
Yeah, I think that was an article
Let me guess.
someone wrote. I
Cali.
think that was clickbait.
It was clickbait. They got my ass.
It's fine.
It happens.
Florida's not even the top 10.
Top 5. Does it show you the list?
I didn't think so because
Cali,
Denver,
Hawaii.
California.
Texas.
No, it's Hawaii,
Phoenix.
New York, Massachusetts, California, Maryland, New Jersey, Oregon, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Alaska.
All right.
I know
No one
nothing.
wants to live in most of those places.
Rhode Island. Name
This is
one
like,
person.
how is it so expensive to live
My
in
cousin
Rhode
just
Island,
moved to
Connecticut?
Alaska
It's
like
who
a
wants
year
to live
ago.
there?
Oddly enough, so how
That'd be
funny is
sick.
this?
In
It's
case-
also
yeah,
expensive.
In case this makes it in, and there are any listeners from Connecticut, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you.
We love you, Connecticut.
No one wants to live there, especially me.
No, bro, UConn can suck it, bro. I'm so sick of them winning all the time.
All right,
Let someone else try.
I don't have a beef, but
fair. They play great basketball.
Women's
though.
basketball.
Beef either. Did they legalize?
Great.
Never mind. That's
Gino
Massachusetts.
Auriemma.
Great fundamental basketball.
I don't understand how. Whatever.
I'm a fan of the program.
Odd though to me that so many of these states are like the most expensive to live in and also have to be miserable to live in. Like it's cold.
All the time.
I don't understand.
Like New York, Massachusetts, like that stuff. You're just like,
I will never.
because we're from Ohio, we know
It's
what it's
trash.
like
I
living
mean,
there. It's bad.
Massachusetts. I would consider Massachusetts to live
we
in.
were up there in Boston. and that
Massachusetts?
I would
sucks.
not live in Boston, but that doesn't cover the whole of
Boston was
Massachusetts.
Do you want to live in where it's icy and
Halifax?
snowy?
I wouldn't mind it.
That's
Never
also
experienced
only
it.
though because we're dictating it purely off the road systems, which were very archaic.
Well,
Justin
it's
almost
not that.
killed us
I think
multiple times.
I'm happy to
Whoa,
visit
whoa, whoa, whoa.
snow.
I feel like I
don't want
saved
to.
us multiple times, and other people almost killed us.
I don't want to live in snow again.
A semi almost hit us on 2 occasions.
Sounds like
Neither one would have been our fault if we would have died.
Regardless, we would
We
have
could
died.
have sued the out of them. You know.
You can't sue anyone when you're dead. That's fine.
Well,
Exactly.
yeah,
My family, though,
feel like yeah,
well
I
off
feel like
Yeah, right.
for once in their life.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
So, what
I'll
serious
Google it.
topic were we going to cover on this podcast?
Man.
I got a
so many
couple.
things.
Oh, there he is. Justin's got a couple.
No, if no one else has anything that they would like to
No,
talk
yeah,
about.
go for it.
Well, we talked about swearing in the bathroom, not like in swearing in the bathroom.
Specifically in the
Specifically.
bathroom.
Yeah, but swearing in general.
Like, I got to take a.
How do you feel about that? You want to cover that?
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, just kick it off.
Swearing in the bathroom?
Okay, so my personal stance with a lot of this is most of it is a cultural thing, and society has basically created like bins of words that are like acceptable, not acceptable, whatever, right? And for me, when I really like, if we're gonna like put it through the lens of like scripture, when I think about it, like to me, it's all about intention of what you're saying, you know. And if someone wants to get offended by a single word, whatever, that's your prerogative. But to me, it's like we say that, like, let's say like any of the 4-letter words that are no-nos, right? The swear words in our culture, right? Most people just get offended when they hear the word. But then you have other people like Gary Vee or like Tony Robbins, incredibly successful people that have actually made incredible changes and like impacts on the world, influencing young people and turning like lives around.
Yeah, and Tony
all
Robbins
kinds of
has
stuff.
indicated he's religious, right? He's a Christian
Yeah.
or something. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. He's definitely theistic.
Some kind of
in
believer.
some sense. Yeah, he
right.
believes there's a God. But it's like, you know, there's intention behind why they use it, you know, and you know, if you want to use, you know, one of the bad 4-letter words to like insult someone or to like it basically just in a negative sense, out of rage or anger, like moving it in a negative way, right? Like that's not okay. But it's
No,
also
right.
not okay to say like you're dumb and your mother never loved you, or like just, you know, like just
yeah, you
stupid.
could just say you freaking idiot.
Like it's just like either way, it's
yeah,
like
it's not-
When I
not
think
good.
about the way we're gonna approach it through like a spiritual lens, it's like if I use a word that's deemed negative by, you know, majority of culture, or at least nowadays it might not even be.
It's not to hurt someone.
When it's used to like, if I say like hell yeah, and it's like that's different than say go to hell, like to
Yeah.
somebody, right? It's like
Yeah.
we in our own worlds created this kind of dichotomy. And then when I think about a lot of like when I think about, you know, the religious world, you know, the whole don't take the name of the Lord your God in vain. That's kind of the verse that comes to mind that probably a lot of people would look to in the sense of like, you know, like when I grew up, like you don't say OMG, like you don't say it out loud. Like I remember one time watching a football game. No, this is real life. We were watching a Ohio State bowl game,
Shout
right?
out.
Rose Bowl. David Boston. Who? I don't remember the quarterback. It'll come to me. Gerard. All right.
Ooh.
So actually, that might not have been right. I don't know. It began with the G.
We need
though.
a fact
Joe Germain. Let's get it.
Look it
Joe
up.
Germain
Look it
to
up,
David Boston.
2001.
Rose Bowl. Mid 90s. Ohio State
Mid-90s.
against. I want to say
I'm out of this.
Arizona State. Sun Devils. Let's get it. So we're watching the game, and like 2 weeks prior to this event, I had been playing out on recess, and I was like maybe 3rd, 4th grade. I was playing with some of the
You
older
remember
kids.
this?
Oh, vividly.
3rd, 4th
But
grade.
wait though, because
A lot of
there's
stuff I
there's a
remember
reason.
from 3rd, 4th grade.
There's a reason. There's a memory.
Random.
It's because okay, so I was playing with these older kids, right? Out at recess, we're playing football, and something happened on the field, and one of the kids reacted and he just yelled like, Jesus Christ. And I knew it was something bad that happened for him because it wasn't like the other team like scored. He was on defense, right? So it was clearly like
In vain.
he was salty, right? So he said it. And so in my mind, I'm like, oh, that's just a way to like, that's something to say when like you're salty or when you're pissed and when something doesn't go your way, right? So we're fast forward now, we're watching this Rose Bowl with my family and like we're all chilling there. Joe Germain drops a bomb to David Boston. He drops it in the end zone and like it's silent. And then I'm just like, Jesus Christ. And I just let it rip because I don't know any better. I'm
Everyone
like 10.
stares at you.
Yeah. And then like my dad looks at me just mortified, right? And then he just doesn't even know what to do, right?
Yeah.
Long story short, basically
takes
I
you
end
in
up
the
in the
other room.
basement for the next 3 hours writing, I will not take the name of the Lord my God in vain 300 times in a row. Right,
300
like it
times.
was like
That's next
and I had
level.
no idea. I was just like, "Dang, bro! I thought I was expressing
Yeah.
some saltiness, right?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I just feel like a lot of people view it as like, "Don't say OMG, don't say," and it's like, look, okay, I understand where certain people come from feeling that way. To me, though, when I read that verse, thinking about the Bible as a relational book, right? It's all about connecting us to our Creator. Like when I read that verse through a creational kind of lens or context, like it's like, don't take his name in vain. Like when I think about that, I think about like what we talked about earlier, the marriage thing, where it's like, if I'm going to take someone's name, it's like I'm connected to this person now. Like Luke with you and your wife, or JJ, you and your wife. It's like she took your name and now she's forever connected to you. And like a scripture calls us the bride of Christ, right? The church or, the believers. So it's like, don't take his name in vain. To me, that means like, don't sign up for this thing if you're not really committed. But I feel like we took that verse and we were just like, don't say OMG. There's going to be problems. You can say, oh my gosh. But if you give me that hard D, you got problems. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, just anything but the hard D.
What?
Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
I used the gosh, okay?
What? So what is the?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's
And here
move
we are.
on.
Here we
and
are.
here we are.
That better not be clipped.
But like I would say that like, you could just be in awe at something, right? Like you could be hiking on a trail in the Rocky Mountains and all of a sudden you get to this opening and you're just like in awe and you're like, oh my God. That's not in vain.
Yeah.
So what is vain?
It's an amazement.
That's the question.
Let's define this.
Well, that's why I don't
You
think
gonna look it up?
I don't think it's a word.
Look up what vain is.
It is. It is a word.
I don't think it's saying the word. I like to do something in vain is to like basically
In anger.
To
right?
use
would
God's
say-
name in vain means to use his name in a vulgar manner. That's one.
see, I
Vulgar
don't see it
manner.
that way. That doesn't.
Vulgar. Well, look up vulgar. Let's see how far this rabbit trail goes. Right?
Does it say don't use or don't take?
The verse?
Yeah, the actual verse.
How do you take? I don't know. I guess I never thought about that deeply. But what do you do when you take something in vain? Take or
what's
say
the-
something.
Well, that's
say,
why I was.
take
That's.
it.
I guess my whole argument is based off of. I always thought it was don't take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Instead of just don't use.
Which I get. I guess
What-
so
I
it's
mean,
just like
what-
that Usher song. The OMG Usher song where like they weren't allowed to say God. They had to say, oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Was it always gosh? I thought it was
They
God.
weren't like, and when he performed it live, like he wouldn't say God. He would say gosh.
See, and that's just. I think that's just like
Pandering.
that whole theme is an incorrect translation of that because they can easily. They're not saying
Because
it in
what do you?
vain.
So
It's part of a song.
Okay,
It's
here's
not
a
even
crazy.
it's not
Here's a
even in
crazy
vain.
reality. What do you say when you're pissed? You're like, oh my god. What do you say when you're climaxing? Oh my god.
You're not in vain. It's not. Well, would that be considered vulgar?
I don't know. I'm just
Well-
saying you say it.
Another, according to this, another definition is using it. Let me see. Where is it? Also means his name not to be used for selfish purpose. Hop on the Goog. Hop on the Goog. See what you got over there.
I just want to read the
how do you-
actual verse.
How do you
Because-
reconcile that? Like, what's
I guess that in that, yeah.
selfish? What's selfish? You know what I mean? Like, how do you use?
So like if you were to go see nature and you're like the mountains, that is like, oh my God, he created this. Oh my God, this is impressive. I don't know. That's very selfless. But if you were to say,
It says misuse the name.
Misuse. These are all very vague terms, people.
What's vague mean?
We need to know how much time we got.
Never-ending trail.
Everyone write these definitions down so that we can bring them all together later.
Interesting.
It is kind of crazy, right? So, you're all on your phones now.
Well, I'm trying to find out.
It's up to me to keep talking.
I'm going to
say a joke or something.
Say. But yeah,
Another translation says,
me,
do not misuse the name of the Lord.
I just saw that.
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
This thing I read, it says, when it comes to saying the name God, really, that is God's first name. God the Father's name is God, so you wouldn't stub your toe and scream your earthly father's name, whether it be Bob or Joe or George. Oh, George.
I would love to do that.
That would be really fun.
I think I'm going to... George! Like in the middle of the night. George! Excuse me? What did you just
So
say?
it's dishonoring the precious nature of who God is and the fact that he keeps us from eternal damnation.
Okay, so
That sounds
just the
so
name
religious.
Of God,
It really
the
fucking-
name, so
it
the
really
name of
does.
God was very
Might
precious
have
to
to
those
bleep
early
that.
cultures.
Yeah. Sorry.
But it's okay. So think about it like this though. Like if you're God in heaven or wherever
fine.
He exists, if you are actually Almighty God, like do you really care if people are saying your name without like the utmost respect? Like when I think about like lost children, or like if I'm a father and I have like lost children that I want to come back home, right? It's like I'm not gonna be salty if they're going through some stuff, or if I don't know, even if they were to like talk trash about you, like a good father. Think about it. It's like, you know that like this is my child, like he's going through it for whatever reason. Like I'm not gonna get like upset.
Well, does that-
But that I guess that's that
What we
Old
talked
Testament
about.
God. That's that.
Well, that's the thing, yeah, because the commandments come from the Old Testament, but at the same time, it's, we talked about how the two commands from Jesus
right.
culminate the Old Testament law, right? So it's like, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, mind, So in that, you would assume that means like out of respect, you would never do that. But it's like, at the same time, you could love someone with all your heart, right? But they piss you off, or something happens and you just get mad at them, right? Whether it's their fault or not. And you could use their name in vain. You could yell at them. You could tell them you hate them, but that doesn't change the way you feel about them. So it's just like, well, if Jesus really, and according to a lot of people, he basically abolished the old law and replaced it with, and whatever's in the Gospels is arguably, more important than the Old Testament, right? So when you look at that, it's like, okay, it's like one of those things where a parent, it's just like you always relate to like God as like your kids relate to you, right? So it's like, all right, my son could tell me he hates me, that he doesn't, he could just scream at me, whatever. I know he loves me, right? Like I love him. And it's just like, it hurts, but I know that it's just like, that doesn't change the way he feels about me, right? He's just being emotional and in the moment. So it's like, as it relates to the father, it's just like, is it just this sin that we just have to be like, I mean, granted, like we don't, not necessarily like we're trying to hurt God, right? Like that's not what we're trying to do with it. We're just expressing frustration. And many of us, I mean, like you said, you just said it because you just like were frustrated, and that's what people say when they're frustrated based on your experience. And so like for us, it's like, all right, well, we're not trying to do that. We're just kind of, we hear it all the time. So we just say it. We just regurgitate it.
Right.
It doesn't mean that we're necessarily deeply in our soul trying to blaspheme, God or the Holy Spirit or anything like that. So it's like, it comes back to the heart and intention, right? So, not that, I mean, I don't think swear words and, taking in, God's name in vain and all that stuff, I think even culturally is still seen as kind of trashy, honestly. If you're in the wrong context, right? Like you're just a grocery store and you're like cussing out your kid or something. Like that's trashy. Like that's not, you know what I mean?
But yeah,
but
again,
you're just
it
hanging
goes to
out
the
at a
use,
party,
yeah.
or if you're like in a group of friends where it's just like contextually in that group of friends, you guys swear a lot. It's just kind of like common talk. Not a big deal. You know what I mean? It's just, it's different. So I don't know. It's a lot of mixed thoughts about it. When it's appropriate and when it's not.
Well, and part of the problem too is that now there's a scientific component in the sense that like they've done studies that show that like the worse that we perceive a word to be when we say that, in moments of good or bad. It's almost like an exaggerator. It's like that exclamation point.
You got there.
I got it. Nice. Where it's like, for some reason, if you just like something great happens and you just drop an F-bomb, you're like, yeah, like it just feels good.
Yeah.
Or it's like when you're really frustrated, like we know, all of us know people who are real careful around each other, but then like when no one's looking, they like let it rip because it's it helps. There's something about the perception that this is the worst word I can say, and when I say it, I mean they've done the studies and show it it helps relieve stress because I view this as the worst word per our culture. When I say it, like somehow helps me like release some level of tension,
And I feel like in the church,
or even express a high level of like euphoric.
I don't even
kind
see
of
it as a
emotion.
bad
Euphoria.
word. I literally just see it as a way to express my emotion.
Yeah. Yeah. But at the same time, if you're around certain people, you wouldn't say it.
No,
Right, like
I'll say it around anyone.
Yeah. Well, okay.
But that ultimately goes to
Trying
your
to find the right
upbringing, though.
example.
No, I get what you're saying. Like
There's at
yeah.
some point you would
environment.
hold back, right? Like whether
Yeah.
it's in a daycare or
But
something.
why?
Like
But why? Because society has made it seem that that's a horrible word. But why?
It
I mean,
is-
it's
it
literally
is-
just a way to express
it is,
yourself.
It's cultural for sure.
Yeah.
That's
So-
why I love Tony Robbins will get in someone's face and just start dropping F-bombs.
Well, that's why I love
and it's
Gary
not,
Vee.
Yeah,
Well,
he
same
does it.
thing. It's
Yeah.
just like, dude, it's a way.
for effect. It's for It's
Like he-
boom. It's
Gary
like
Vee
we gotta
even
offend
says,
people to
like-
like crack through the layers of superficiality where
Yeah.
Is that
it's
a
like
word?
you
I'm sorry. That's fine.
Superficiality for
maybe
sure.
I don't know.
Look that up.
Fact checkers, let me know in the comments. All of you out there.
I think
Comment. They're like, that's not an effing word, Justin.
I have a thought. I have a
Superficiality.
thought I'd like to throw in the. I'd like to throw
I back
out.
it.
All right. Luke wants. to
Here's my
thought.
thought. I think a lot of people get hung up on what's like. So the Bible talks all about the power of the tongue, right? And so I think a lot of people like to camp out on the curse word thing when in reality, like what you touched on, what you say is and how you say it is so important. It brings life or. Thank you, MJ.
Mm-hmm.
It brings
I don't know, I
life,
feel like that was a bad time to use it.
life
Life and
and
death,
death,
Hard
Right.
take.
with the power of the tongue.
Right.
So a
Soft
lot of
take.
people camp out, so that means I can't curse. Well, what can I say? And I'm like, well, I think if you're just focused on that, then you're kind of missing the whole thing. Me personally, I try to avoid cursing because I feel like it's also a matter of self-control. So like if I have an impulse, because Lord, I mean, obviously I've cursed, and anyone who has said they
What?
haven't.
Lies.
But my thought process is
In private.
Prove it.
so in the Bible it says if you can control your tongue, you can control your life. But it also says like no one can really control their tongue, but you should try to. And so it's like if I can discipline myself to do that, even when I'm like moved to do it, that's something I desire. So like if I can control that, I can control my impulse to sin elsewhere. I can control my
Sure.
and so yeah.
And that's a personal conviction you have.
sure, yeah, and
I don't
so that's
have
what
that.
So
conviction
I mean,
as
do you
much,
feel
really.
guilty when you do like say those words?
If it's conviction, you probably do. Right?
yeah. I mean, I don't.
Naturally, you probably do. Or no.
Yeah, I feel a conviction of
You feel like you failed, or
no. I just feel like if it's up to me, I would rather use words that better describe the situation.
I mean, like with anything, whether it's a swear word or not, if you are someone who walks around using too much emphasis, we'll call it, you do tend to be, looked at as like that person that's just like can't control their tongue. We work with plenty of guys like in our field that just like to swear every other word. And that's just off-putting, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a religious thing. It's not, I mean, it is off-putting, right? So it's just like, you'll just be like, all right, well, I don't love talking with this guy because he just like drops an F-bomb every other word, right? So,
Right.
but like once in a while for effect, like I don't think there's anything wrong. I mean, well, like you were saying, dude, like, I mean, I've volunteered for over 25 years, on different church, like whether it's the worship team or staff or, whatever. And it's just like in every position I've had, you'll have people come up to me and just be like, under their breath, like, man, I can't deal with this shit. Like, it's just like, this is like, yeah, I mean, and it's just like, they don't want to say it loud because they know what people think about it. But it's just like, they definitely are one to use a swear word for emphasis. And I think most of us are those people, right? And it's just like we're trying to hide it, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's an overall a cultural thing that's probably going to change, or at least like, kind of mold a little bit.
I mean, our words, every 6 months we've got new, trending words. And I mean, we're getting to the age where we can't even keep up. Like, we don't even know what's in now.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the thing. Like, people say,
it's just language.
What does the Bible say? Coarse language? Is that what it says? Or something like that? Coarse talk?
But again, it goes back to that whole, like, just like, when you're saying it out of like anger, it's the intent. When you're saying it to like tear someone or something down, probably shouldn't say it. And when you're saying it to love or build someone up, like if I literally look at someone in a moment of just like genuine, and it's like we have this kind of relationship, I'm like, dude, I love the shit out of you. Like it's like
you want to express.
Like I've been in that moment where I'm just having an incredible experience with people. You're just having fun. We're out on the beach.
Yeah.
Like, bro,
Just
and you
saying I love you isn't enough.
And it's like
I love the shit out of you.
But it's like you just want to let them know like you're feeling it. Like it's just like
No, I get it.
But because we've deemed the words as like naughty, it's almost like it's like, oh, this is like I'm willing to risk.
Yeah.
I'm risking it, as Luke would say.
Risk it for the biscuit.
Risk it for the what?
Because I want them to know how much I mean it. Like
I need a sound pad for that.
It's like someone, when you feel like sometimes when you feel words aren't enough, and it's like it's just like that exclamation mark. And but in certain circles, obviously, just hearing the word one time, it's like gets real awkward, cringe, And
it's not like it's not like we're just like, we're people like religious people who it's taboo and we just want a reason to rebel.
Oh, sorry. That wasn't supposed to start.
All right. You heard it here first, folks.
Looks like the good Lord started.
The good Lord just sent me a conversation starter.
I love that so much.
That's great.
We don't have to go off on that tangent.
Okay, well, here's
funny.
this. So there's literally hundreds of verses, and none of them obviously say specific curse words to our day and age, right? So
because it's all cultural,
right?
Yeah,
written to them for us.
I would
That's
love
for
to
another
look
time.
up what the swear words were of the day.
That'd be funny.
I would, Luke.
I'm on
At
it.
one point, you could bite your thumb at someone. It was the equivalent of saying like "f you."
Really?
Really?
Yeah, derogatory type stuff. Yeah.
Proverbs.
You could just do that to
Ooh,
people
let
and
me
be
see
like,
which one.
I'm gonna
I
double
know what
check
that.
that.
At least I know.
I'm
what
pretty
that
sure
Like,
it's
are you
legit.
okay?
It's like,
Why are you biting your thumb?
are you coming on to me or?
Yeah. What does this mean?
So Luke, sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
well, I mean, just a couple.
It's real
Because
life.
there's literally hundreds, and they all kind of encapsulate this conversation. But a couple in Proverbs 4:24: "Put away from you crooked speech, put devious talk far from you." The next one, 21:23: "Whoever keeps his mouth and his tongue keeps himself out of trouble." So, I think a lot of here's a thought. People love to have A plus B equals C in their lives. Can I curse? What can I not do? Just tell me so I can follow it. And that's not, a part of the walk with Jesus, because it's like,
Well, that's the whole thing. We're looking for instructions.
Yeah,
We're just
and
like,
it's
hey,
not
tell
it.
me exactly how I should live my life
Yeah.
instead of starting with
Well,
relationship.
because you get
Instead
hit
of
with certain
trusting him as
rules,
you go.
and you're just like, all right, what's
Yeah.
permissible, what's not.
and so if there's so much power in your speech, put away crooked speech. Okay. Take that and go. Like, I don't know. If people die on the hill of bad
even
words,
that-
then I'm like, okay, well, that's not something that's
Even
heaven
that,
or hell,
like-
so what are we talking about?
Like that thought itself could be subjective, like crooked speech. Like some people could interpret it as like the no words. Some people might interpret it as like any language that you use like to destroy something or
Right.
tear something down.
Right.
Like it's like
I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, there's a wicked man goes about with crooked speech. Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt. Like, you could go,
you may never swear at your
On and
kids,
on.
but you can't tell your kid you're disappointed in them. I mean, that to me is worse than swearing at a kid.
Oh,
death
for
and
sure. I
life are
think
in the power of the
like-
tongue. Those who love it will eat its fruit. Like, whatever. I could go on forever.
It's just like, yeah, it's not like we're in love with swearing. It's not like we just live our life going about just like, hey, F all these people. It's like, I don't know. Like, I'm not sitting there like, I mean, but I have run across those people. Right. I feel like a lot of times the Bible uses these examples of these extreme people that do exist. But most of the time, most of us don't live there. But the Bible, it's almost like the way a lot of people interpret the Bible. It's just like it just makes it out to be like we're all that bad guy, and we're not, right? Like, so we're all trying to live a good life, right? But like, it's like sometimes the way it's interpreted to us is just like, no, we're those pieces of shit that the Bible's talking about, and so, so that becomes challenging.
Well, it's interesting because then you start getting into like the conversation of like, are humans bad? Should we go there?
Like by name, you're talking about original sin?
Well, like we all try and live good lives.
Because that's an interesting thing in my journey that.
And I think the Bible sheds a lot of light on that.
Yeah. And the Bible's pretty clear that we're all born because of Adam and Eve, born into sin, right? And we need a savior. And for me in this journey, I feel like I had to let go of everything and approach it not from the lens of like, all right, let's find eternity through this door. It's like, all right, like I truly believe that my intent is to find truth and find an all-loving, good God. Mm-hmm. And if that's what I want most, there's no way that God would allow me to find something else than the truth, if there is one God to cling to.
So are you saying it's God's responsibility to save you?
No. I'm just saying if all I want in my life is to truly seek God, because we talked about this the other day, like I had my upbringing because I was born in Columbus, Ohio, and my parents were Jim and Renee Palmer. Mm-hmm. The only reason I believe what I believe, or I grew up believing what I believe. If I had been born in South America, in Africa, in Asia, and we didn't have some sort of religious structure like this, I wouldn't believe any of these things. Like, imagine even before, maybe. Yeah, or I could, yeah, perhaps. Who knows? I could believe a million
Classic
things.
Justin.
I could believe I could believe a million things.
Sure.
But it's like, what happens to the people that are just born here and they're not born into some sort of religious system, or maybe there's not really a big slant towards spirituality for them? It's like, okay, well, I at the core of me, I'm like, if there's a real loving, living God, if I'm supposed to connect with him, it's not going to be through a book. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate the book and I love the book. And I believe you follow the book, you're going to have an incredible life. Mm-hmm. It's an incredible roadmap. Yep. But it's like, if we just stop at the book, like, I feel like we missed it.
No, you're right.
And it's like, we touched on it earlier, but it's like most of them didn't have the book. Very few of them did. And I feel like one of the main reasons that Jesus did what he did according to scripture is to say, hey, we're putting the cookies on the bottom shelf. Now, this isn't just for like the religious elite that get to study in the temples. Now everybody gets to be. And then it was that verse out of 1 John where it says, like, you no longer need any man to teach you, like you have the Holy Spirit. It's like, at some point, it's like spiritual leaders are great, but like your number one leader is your internal guide.
Absolutely.
Like, to go inside and find peace and direction.
Another topic if we're talking out loud, is the Holy Spirit, because that is an interesting one to talk about.
For sure.
I think you're totally right. And so for me, Jesus was sent to earth to give everyone the opportunity to be saved. And then the Holy Spirit came, and I believe the Holy Spirit pursues everybody for their whole lives in multiple ways to bring them to God. So I don't know what that looks like for someone that was born in a third world country who has never heard of the Bible. But I do trust and believe that God cares and loves about them the same way he does for me. And if it is heaven or hell, he will present that to them in a way that will have them. Mm-hmm. If we're talking about a God who created everything, reaching someone in a third world country is not that big of a deal. He'll do it, right? In any type of way. So that's just what I believe.
It's just, for me, I never let myself go there. And I know this will probably offend a lot of people, but it's hard to really let go of it, because I love the concept of, like, you can't read the label from inside the bottle. And I feel like that's a lot of times where we mess up, is like we're stuck inside of it and it's hard to really look at it objectively. And I'm not trying to discredit, I'm not trying to plug one thing or another. Mm-hmm. And it's like one of the hard things that I'm still trying to just deal through right now is, okay, the all-loving, all-knowing God who existed outside of space and time, created all of this and knew how it all was going to end from the beginning, created a system that led to, you know, a massive majority of his beloved creation burning in the lake of fire for all of eternity. And I read the Bible, you know, I understand that it's like, well, he didn't make hell for people. He made it for the devil and his angels. Like, okay, true. But in his omniscience, he also knew how this would end, and he knew that we would also end up there too.
But
and
if he didn't do that, then we wouldn't. My point is, he gave us the ability to choose. So if you're saying he shouldn't have created hell, like we should all have just been made to go to the good place, then I'm saying, what about the people that don't want to live a life for God?
Sure.
You're robbing people of free will at that point, right?
Well, right. Well, I'm not advocating for one or the other.
Well,
I'm just saying it's this is the first time I've ever even like had this thought,
But
and allowed myself to have the thought. It's like, it's hard when it's like, okay, most of us, because it says like, wide is the road that leads to destruction and many are on it, and narrow is the road that leads to life and few are on it. And it's like, man, like, it's like
what at that
to
point,
have the all-loving God, but then it's also like most of us go to the bad place. It's like, if I'm an all-loving God, like I'd at least have most of us go to the good place. And I get that it's like, I'm not God. I didn't design this.
Yeah.
But it's like, once I like totally step out of it, like that's just being real and raw and honest. Like that's a real hurdle that I'm like looking at right now.
It causes you
tough.
to revisit the scripture and understand, did I really understand this correctly? And that's really, you know, what we're after. And one of the things that, look, you were saying, is just like, well, I think you could create an even free will scenario if you got rid of heaven and hell. Just get rid of both. And like, I mean, somehow make people choose God just out of their, you know, without, because at that point you don't have fear. Because a lot of people choose God because of fear.
So then what would that look like?
I don't know.
Right.
I'm not God. I don't have that kind of brain.
Right.
But I'm saying,
I'm not Elon,
what
right?
I'm saying is, though, right now there's a conflict almost because a lot of people are scaring people into heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like genuine? I mean, does that count? Like, right? Like, is that a true heart for God? It's like just because you're afraid to go to hell?
Right.
I don't know. Oh,
It's tricky, man.
I was going to tell you, by the way, don't reference stuff that we've said earlier because it's not like we just changed our clothes and tried doing another podcast in the same day.
Yeah.
So,
You gonna edit
Come
that
on,
out?
Jess.
yeah, just
Oh, my bad.
there's okay.
Is that a doorbell?
Who's there?
Sure is a doorbell.
And
Is the
welcome our
doorbell.
first guest to the pod.
Yeah.
Well, if we're editing things out, I guess you can answer the door.
Should I actually?
Yeah, go ahead. We can keep talking. Keep talking.
I'm totally
We can
inviting
keep
them.
talking.
We can keep talking. This is great.
Hello.
I bet it was
No one's there?
Susan.
No package or anything on the floor?
I bet it was Susan and both of her masks. Just playing a
Susan was gone.
friendly office
Susan's
prank.
been gone for an hour.
Was that ding dong ditch?
Susan
Someone just
ding dong
ding dong
ditched
ditched us.
What?
They don't want to see us win.
That sounds like Susan.
Or was it Nathan interrupting our podcast on purpose?
Is Nathan not in his office?
I don't
Who
know.
knows?
I just know Nathan.
That's probably exactly what it was.
This is like,
That's good.
yeah, anyway. What were we talking about before we were rudely interrupted by the doorbell?
Wild conspiracy theories.
Okay, well, let me add this, then I'm done. with
I
this
was just
topic.
saying that we didn't change and do another podcast today.
That's right.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
that's confirmed.
100%
This
did
is a new
not
day.
happen.
We have coffee. It's 8 a.m.
Never in a million years would we.
Yeah, it's currently 7 o'clock, and we just woke up an hour ago.
That's right.
Go ahead.
Well,
Buenos dias.
I would say this, and you guys can chime in.
Ding ding.
A lot of people's, I guess, approach to God is we try, I'm guilty of this, everyone's guilty of this, to kind of choose how God is, how God will respond, how God would handle situations. And the reality is we don't choose that. And God is God regardless of how we feel. And so with saying that, he created the world and this whole system of how it's been saved and redeemed. But it also says all the time that he's patient, so his desires are that everyone is saved and everyone is. So, like,
Yeah.
it's just a matter of knowing the heart of God, because God He didn't create hell to send people to hell. He doesn't want people to go to hell. Like, that's not his heart. His heart is, I want them to choose, which I think is beautiful. And so
What's one of those things too is like people talk about heaven as something you experience here on earth. So how does that complicate things, right? Like at what point is the Bible talking about the kingdom of heaven as in the kingdom of heaven here on earth and after this life?
Well, because also
Depends where you
we got to
read.
think about 2,000 years ago when they're having these conversations, they think the earth is flat and that the literal heaven is like in the atmosphere above them somewhere. And then there's a hell below them. I mean, so we know now that like we've been to space. I mean, I guess we're going to transition through.
Have we been to space?
Actually,
What's the
I'm low key.
truth?
I don't know.
It's
that
quite
we've been to the
appropriate though.
moon.
Yeah,
we
here
live
he
in
goes, here
Orlando.
he goes.
Luke and I literally watched the
JJ's
same
done
rocket
much
this morning
more
launch
research
confirmed.
than I,
SpaceX.
but
So good.
Shout
I
out.
love living here.
if Elon doesn't take us to the moon soon, I'm calling shenanigans on all of it.
wow, hot take. Hot take.
It's just a bunch of fabric and lights, and it's just a bunch of holes someone poked in it.
They actually
Those are
recorded
the
it right
stars.
here with the backdrop.
We wanted
Yeah,
that
right?
W. We didn't want Russia to beat us.
This was the old moon landing studio.
Oh, that's great.
Where was the wind?
Spin off.
That's all I'm saying. Where was the wind? Why's the flag stiff? There's no shadows. What's going on?
Great. That's
Yeah, I don't know enough about it, but
I don't
something
either.
seems a little fishy.
I'm just throwing. Okay. All right.
I don't know.
Can't tell if you're being serious. I want to slap you.
JJ is very into the space stuff. For those who aren't
This
aware,
is near and dear to his
Any
heart.
of you saw my tats from last episode?
that's right. That's right. Justin just broke JJ's heart just now. But we'll revisit.
I just saw Nathan walk from over there. He's definitely the one that did it.
Looking guilty.
Yeah, he went from the kitchen, rang the doorbell, and then popped back in the office for sure.
That's great.
On to you.
All right, I got a question.
Yeah, what's your question?
It's another one of these thoughts. I was chilling
Please ask.
the other day, and I was listening to this spoken word thing, and it was just a beautiful kind of sentiment. It was very just kind of I was just trying to have a meditative kind of just morning, just really reflect, kind of go inward. And I heard this phrase, it said, either all is of God or nothing is. And to me, like that makes perfect sense.
Break that down for us.
And then they went on to say, you know, or they really didn't go. I mean, they kind of just said it and went on to another bit. But like it's that was like one of those phrases that just like pierced. And it was like, dang, because like, so we have this world of good and evil, and God is all perfect and all loving. So He created everything. Creates Lucifer that becomes Satan, that is the father of evil. So does Satan have the ability to create? Or was there a shadow side of God that manifested in Lucifer that God himself had conquered or whatever? It's just an interesting thought, because I was just like, even if God really created everything, then the capacity for absolute carnage and destruction has to be within him somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's like one of those things where if we're going to say God's perfect, right? He made an imperfect people. His creation's imperfect because he gave us free will, right?
Did he make us imperfect?
But even the
No, he made
angels.
us. I don't know. Were we perfect when we were first made, though? I don't know. It's just kind of one of those things where it's just like,
Well, Adam and Eve were without sin until they did the thing. So initially, they were made until Adam and Eve.
yeah,
the
Screw
world
the pooch.
today, the world today is not the world that was like originally planned,
sure.
right? So that
Or was it? Because God knew it was
he knew
exactly
it
what was going to happen.
but it wasn't his desire. There's a difference between, like, the thing is, people get caught up in this whole free will predestination thing, and just because God knows something's going to happen doesn't mean that He's making us do it.
Right. No, I agree
So
with that.
there's it's like a paradigm,
Yeah.
or a paradox, or whatever the word is. It's just kind of like a
Paradox, yeah. Mind
It's
What
blowing.
is
like-
a paradigm?
But
the
maybe it's
definition?
one of those
Yeah.
things.
Definition.
It's like one of those things where it's probably something that it's fun to talk about, but it's not really.
Well, that's the thing. It's inconsequential.
But
Paradigm.
then again, though, it's like, for me, again, like now that I would consider myself outside of the container, it's just hard to have a conversation because like I'm trying to like take just a very completely step back, broad approach, and saying like anything is possible.
Yeah, yeah. Sure.
And I have faith. Like the faith that I try to operate in right now is that I will find the right thing.
Right.
And it's even like look at what we've been through in the last like 2 years with like the pandemic, with all this crazy stuff, right? And it like divided the nation to the point where like whatever. A lot of the people were just like, stay in your homes and don't do anything and get the vaccine and just wait. And then you have a whole nother camp that's just like, don't tell me what to do. Like, I'm going to do what I want to do. Like, the government doesn't have the right to control my life.
Right.
Right. And it's like, and so it may not be a perfect like correlation, but when I think about it, it's like, okay, so like all that certain people are saying is like, hey, I just want to like take a step back and look at like all of the evidence and look at everything that's happening and make my decision. And it's hard when there's the other half. It's like, no, there's only one way through this. And so you're almost at an impasse because it's just, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely challenging because it's just like yeah,
Here's the definitions.
All right.
Paradox, a seemingly absurd statement or proposition that, when investigated or explained, may prove to be true. Paradigm is a typical example or pattern of something.
Well, I knew those were completely different.
Yeah, I knew they were not related. I meant to say paradox.
Okay.
So paradigm is just like
A pattern. A model.
Something you're used to. And then a paradox is something that doesn't make sense.
But actually does when you investigate it.
Right.
It's seemingly opposite usually
Right.
of what you would think.
Love that.
Yeah, yeah. Little vocab test for you.
No, it's good. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's tough because it just feels like the typical Christian or religious person or whatever you call it, no matter what religion it doesn't matter if you're Christian or anything else. It's just like many times there's pressure from call it the establishment, right? To not ask questions, to not be able to investigate or do anything because everyone's fearful that something's going to happen or someone's going to hear you ask that question. And then all of a sudden, half the church is like, going off the deep end or something like that.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. I think that's the fear, is because a lot of people think that like if we let people kind of like really go off on their own kind of and explore and figure things out, what's going to be the ripple effect. And I totally get that. And I think about, for me personally, part of why like the religion aspect was hard for me was because like it just never felt right for me to go like witness and like go like preach the gospel and tell people like, hey, the way you see the world is wrong and you need to like give your life to Jesus Christ. And it's like, I know that's a harsh way to say it, but that's what you're telling them.
Yeah.
And so
If someone came up and told me that,
well, right.
and I'd be like,
Well, the
dude,
thing
get out
is,
of my face.
but we,
Yeah, right.
that's what we're telling them, but we're wrapping it in like Christmas wrapping and like trying to like soften the blow. But we're telling them like, hey, you need to like turn or burn, brother. Like this is for your good.
Yeah.
And so, but I just never felt peace doing that. Like it just always felt like awkward to me. It didn't matter. And like,
sure.
and end of the day, maybe that's probably because it just maybe wasn't real enough, or the belief wasn't deep enough where I was like, I'm not even sure that like, because I don't know if I really believed it. Like, of course I would tell these people. Mm-hmm. If it was that important and I believed it that deeply, like, of course I would tell everyone. But I don't know.
Yeah, and what's tough is the people around you. You don't want to let down the people around you either. Mm-hmm. So then you feel this pressure to not bring any of this stuff up. And so instead of growing up with a childhood of, being able to ask the questions and understand, and you're not alone in this. A lot of people, most people, a lot of Christians that grew up in being a Christian, they just don't feel comfortable asking these questions, and all of a sudden it's like, all right, well,
I'm out.
yeah, that's it. It's like,
Yeah.
I just made this decision on my own because y'all didn't let me ask these questions.
Yeah.
And I mean, not that if you did ask the questions, you would just end up, super Christian or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like you have to give people that freedom,
Mm-hmm.
So it's just interesting too, because you were talking about like how you approach people and just say like turn or burn.
You're going to hell.
We also go to them
We just
and
say it
just
in
be
a
like,
super nice way.
someone who doesn't believe or whatever, we come up to them and we try to like, explain to them our perspective, right? Which is really what you should be doing. You should just explain to them what you believe and don't create this pressure or fear.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, hey, this is what I believe. This is how it's had an effect on my life. This is how it's whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem
And
is,
then walk away.
yeah, but a lot of times people do this and they're just like quoting scriptures. It's like, what?
Right.
Why are you doing? Like, I mean, and it's just like one of those things where people do this with science, and I can't wait till we talk about some of the science stuff because that's my deal. I love this stuff. But when we talk about, so example of science, it's just like we use the Bible as like this, like, well, this is what the Bible says about creation. It's just like, 7 days, clearly, that was it. 7 days,
Literal days. Yeah.
days as we understand them now, from someone who wasn't physically there. Right. It's just like something that God revealed to Moses. So, and it's just like, well, okay, but if I don't believe the Bible's valid, okay, I'm not saying that I don't, but I'm just saying if I'm that guy and I'm just saying like you're trying to witness to me or something, you tell me the Bible, or you tell me stuff from the Bible, I'm like, well, what if I don't trust that book? Like, where's the other proof? Like, what else do you have?
That's just such a good point.
I mean, it's frustrating because it's just like we're trying to, because something we recognize as authority, we're trying to like make that be proof
Dude,
of anything, of why you should change your life,
Well, it's circular reasoning. It's like, you got to
Yeah.
do this. Why? Because the book says, well, why? Well, it's like, it's just the book says.
Human-
And it's just like, it
human-
always circles back.
Who
and you're
wrote
like,
it?
like,
Right.
That's why I think the
Complicated.
book is the book's an incredible gift, and there's a reason it lasted so long. But I still believe the point of the book is to point you to Jesus.
That's facts.
And so
All
it's
facts,
like,
no printer.
it's gotta, and then it's that's relationship where you really sit with yourself, and like, I don't know,
Well, here's the
I totally messed
main
that.
problem. People,
He said all facts, no printer.
all facts, no
A
printer.
year from here now, I need to make a full podcast of just you
ad-libs.
and your Doyleisms.
Facts, no print.
Doyleisms. I
This is old
love
school,
that.
man. This old soul.
Can we trademark
Papa
that?
Doily? Let's go.
Doyleisms. Wow.
Here's my pet peeve.
Grandpappy.
Here's my
Really
pet peeve.
revolutionary.
I do have a few pet peeves.
Doyleisms.
People historically overcomplicate things. Do y'all heard of the show The Chosen? Justin?
Oh yeah.
The show they made about the life. It's a show they recently made about the life of Jesus.
have, yeah.
Super
it's
dope.
great.
Anyways, there's a scene in there that does this perfectly, but people they're just too much. Trey Kennedy, shout out. He has a clothing line that says, "Do less, God bless." And I bought a hoodie. I'm like, bro, yes, that's it. Because
That all rhymes.
I
Do
know.
less, God bless. Yes.
I know.
Oh, yes.
he's the GOAT. But anyways,
Yes.
like this is the model for how to share the gospel. I hear the story, I buy into it. Jesus changes my life, and then I'm different now, so I go live my life. That's how it spreads. So it's like when you go beat a Bible over someone's head, like what I'm trying to say is I was this way, now I'm this way, he's the reason. And then you walk away. It's pretty simple. And people just always like try and force opinions and try and throw up scriptures on people, and it's like,
Yeah,
no, that's why would anyone want to be like you?
Yeah.
Why would people listen to that?
I think part
You're
of
one way, now you're new, walk away. Here's
part
the reason.
Part of the problem, I think, for
Mic
me
drop.
is when I think about my own life, and I think about when I'm going through tough times. It's like, I don't know. This might be a pretty unpopular opinion, but it's just like
A lot of these are.
Pew, 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 pew.
end of the day.
Sorry, that was
Like
loud.
when I go to because at this point, what we're just rolling up and we're just giving unsolicited advice. And like, imagine if someone just
Mm-hmm.
rolls up and gives you unsolicited advice. I'd be like, kindly go away,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's just like,
I mean,
that's the hard
about
part. It's like
anything.
You probably wouldn't say that kindly.
Exactly.
It doesn't even have to be about
that was
the
the
Bible. It's like literally about
polite way.
anything.
Yeah. And so it's like, really what's happening is like, you're just giving unsolicited advice to people. And it's like, I understand why you want to do it because you think it helps. But it's like, when I look at the life of Jesus, it's like, he took the time to get to know people.
Yeah.
Or he used like supernatural wisdom, like the woman at the well, where he's just like, yeah, I know you're not married and this is like your sixth dude and you're not, or whatever, the woman in the affairs, whatever. And all that stuff. And it's like, he was able before he just like was like, here's some unsolicited advice. he was able to just like either meet a physical need or like drop some like supernatural bombs, and where people were just like,
no, it's good.
like, okay, I'm gonna listen to what you say because like that's not supposed to happen. Like, but when we just roll up to people and we're just like, bro, can I just talk to you? Have you ever like, and you just go right into it. It's like, dude, like these people just need like
It's
friend.
the rare person
Yes.
that will respond to that. There are people that love answering their door and talking to people. It's rare.
It's very rare.
Yeah. So, but we try to use that as like how we can approach everyone. So
Right.
it's just like, I think most of us are on this self-discovery to where we don't really know until we discover for ourselves. Right. It's like we have to discover on our own.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, I don't know. Say I was parking in the parking lot. I have pollen all over my car. Guy comes up to me.
That's the worst.
Hey man, don't park under the trees. You won't get pollen over your car. Hey, thanks, asshole. Now I'm going to park here deliberately because you told me not to. Like, you know, it's just like you kind of have that resistance.
Right.
But then, like, you see some dude park across the parking lot, like way far away from the. Why you park over there? Oh, I just like to avoid getting pollen on my car. It's a good idea.
Dude, that's a good example.
You know? So it's like you discovered it for yourself. But because
Yeah.
the guy could have a point, the first guy, but because he like forced himself on you, you just have this natural resistance to it. It's like, I'm not doing that. Like, right? Like, so it's just, people have to understand that a lot of people just need to go on this journey of self-discovery.
Yeah.
And the best that you can do for them is make that journey a safe place.
Yeah. Live
Right?
your own journey.
Yeah. And so it's just like, you know, you can help them in their journey, like, or like, you know, encourage them in their journey. It's not like just tell them what they're doing wrong or
Right.
like telling them the way to live. It's just like, hey, let me help you in your journey. It's like questions or whatever, you know, great. This is like,
That was a bar.
yeah.
That was like a mini sermon right there.
Like that?
I'm into that.
All right. Sick.
Yeah. I'd like to listen to that every morning when I wake up.
Well, you'll get to, because this will post in a few days on
I got a
Spotify.
surprise for you.
Yeah. So, I
That's
mean,
good.
yeah. So, I mean, you know, bringing it all back around to swearing. It's
Hour
the,
later.
Where are we?
because the other part of this too, with especially with swearing and like with any of these things, right? Like with all the controversial stuff we're going to talk about on this podcast, like, you know, whatever. I listed them all in the intro, which you should watch if you haven't. Basically, you know, it's really just trying to. We always talk about being a Christian. We should live and look differently. It's like we should separate ourselves, like almost like in the example that we
Set
live our
apart.
life.
Yeah, holiness.
But I
all
think
that,
people
yeah.
take that the wrong way. And instead of like just kind of living the best you can, it's almost like people shove it in people's faces. It's just
good.
like, it's like, you know, look at me. It's like, you know, it's like kind of like, you know, Pharisee kind of stuff, like where it's just like, look how righteous I live my life. And then all of a sudden it's just like, well, yeah, you may look different, but you're at that point where you're elevating yourself.
It's good.
And you're not relatable to anyone. So then there's a way to live righteously, but still like
Versus
you know,
self-righteously.
right. And if it's like you have a conviction against drinking, you do it for health reasons, whatever. But it's like a lot of people don't like drink because they think it's just sinful to let it touch your lips. But if you go to the bar and like you're just talking to some dude and you just tell him about your faith and kind of what you believe, it's just like that's so powerful. It's like a dude that like you could just totally like change someone's perception, right, about what a Christian is or who they are just by saying like, yeah, man, I'm a Christian. I have a beer once in a while.
Dude,
It's
this-
not
Just
it's not a big
don't
deal.
be a weirdo.
This is
yeah, right.
this happened
Take
to
that
me.
away from this.
Bro, this happened to me multiple times in my 20s. Meeting people, a lot of people knew that I was super involved in church throughout my 20s, and I was involved with music and all that stuff. And I had multiple people. We'd be out, just having a good time, bunch of friends. We'd be kind of going to different places, having some drinks, just having a great time. Like it was just a great time, having fun, right? In the moment, it's something that like I wasn't supposed to be doing, and it was like, all right, you know, part of me still wanted to do it. Obviously, I was willing to take the risk and say whatever. But like I had multiple people just be like, bro, like I think it's really cool that like you do the church thing and you come out hanging with us and you don't really we
Tell
don't
us
feel
we're doing
judged.
bad
Like
stuff.
we just hang out, we have a good time. Like it's like you, and I'm not advocating for that. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but it's like you need to just connect with people and not get hung up on, you know, the behaviors that they display that you may not like or think are like acceptable. But like, I mean you know, I had people say that, and honestly, those comments meant a lot to me.
Oh, sure.
So it was just like, dang, like
I'm getting this.
Like I thought I was like actively sinning.
Well, they're
right.
They're gonna remember that,
and instead it's like, oh my gosh, I feel incredible right now.
They're gonna remember that.
So like I feel so close to you, and I feel
because if
and
you're
it's
that,
not that it's good or bad, but it was just like, that meant something to them.
right. And if you're the guy giving unsolicited advice, they're just gonna forget it and just think about, oh, it's another guy's bugging me about this.
Yeah.
But someone who really like saw that in you, like that kind of like compassion, just wanting to hang out and not separating yourself from those people as saying that they're sinners and what they're doing is wrong or something like that. Yeah, it's just crazy because it's like one of those things where it's like a lot of times you hear, especially when you're young, it's just like, all right, and you're young, you're impressionable, that's a little different. But when you're an adult, you hang out with people who clearly don't live a good life or whatever you call it, right? And it's just like, all right, you need to stop hanging out with those people. It's just like, well, I'm kind of being a good example to them, like. I mean, granted, like there's stuff about being influenced and whatever, as long as you're not like ODing on drugs or something. But it's different when you can be a positive impact on somebody, and the people who are like, oh well, you shouldn't be around that temptation, you shouldn't be around those people, you shouldn't, you're show me your friends, I'll show you your future type stuff. Which there's some merit to that, but at the same time, it's like, if we just go to the church, if people attend church and they're just all stuck in this bubble. They just see the same people every week, and it's just like, all right, we're just gonna go get our sermon and our worship in, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And then it's just they just live in a bubble, and nothing ever happens. No one reaches anyone.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like that's not it. That's not what we're supposed to do either. So it's just like, and it's just I brought that up because the swearing just relates a lot to that. It's just it's the same thing.
It's a hot topic. I mean,
it's
people
swearing
or
it's
very
drinking,
polarizing.
whatever.
Yeah.
So it's just like people could easily, and it's just funny. You like swear to witness. It's just like kind of funny, but it's just the same time. It's just like you swear or do something, and then like people later find out you're a Christian. They'll probably judge you like, oh, I didn't think Christians did that. It's like, well, it's not really what being a Christian or believing in God's about. You know what I mean? That just doesn't mean that you can't swear or do any of this stuff, like, right? So that's not the heart of it. And then that starts to open them up to like, oh, really? Well, that's what I thought. Like, that's why, I just thought that it was just a strict rule book,
right.
That's why I'm an atheist, because like, I just didn't think that was cool. Like, whatever, right? I don't know. I'm making all that up, but there's truth to it. And I just think that, if we can all be, and you don't have to like, swear, drink, or do any of that stuff. But there's a difference between having loving compassion in a totally non-judgmental attitude and being tolerant. People know when you're being tolerant, right? And like that's a big thing, especially with older people who grew up in the church. It's just like, yeah, well, you're being tolerant, just be tolerant. And then like, people know when you're just being tolerant. And then there's some people that'll take it further and be like, you can't tolerate sin. You can't tolerate the presence of sin and this and that. And then you try to define sin and all that. And you're just like, well, you can't just stop it in its tracks either, because you'll just push people away. Like, I mean, even if something you define as sin, it's just, I don't know. I mean, I've had, problems with like stuff that I've just heard recently just from Christians, and some people say stuff and just like, I'm just like, I don't agree with the way people are going about stuff. And it's just such an old school mentality, right? And that's really what this podcast is, really trying to avoid or really help, or anyone who listens to this, is to understand that, the legalism and all of the rules is just, that's not what Christianity is all about, or religion in that sense, right? I'm hoping that, people can see this and just understand, whether they're, any other religion or an atheist or whatever. I hope people who are atheists watch this, right? And are just like, it's like, see us as people that like they've never seen before, right? It's just like, I've never seen that side, right? I didn't know that existed. I thought it was just these rules that came from just this archaic text, that is just totally implausible, and therefore I stopped believing in years ago. And my upbringing was shit, because of it. And so now I turned away, and it's just like, now I see these people living like what I would consider a real life. Right. But yeah, so that's kind of, hope people see that.
It was a good summary
out of us.
Yeah. I think there's a big, there's a lot, that goes into like the transparency and vulnerability side of things.
Yeah.
And I remember one guy telling me, and he was saying like transparency and vulnerability are very close, but like transparency says like you can look but you can't touch. But when you become vulnerable with someone, it's like you can look and you get to touch, and when you get to that point, you can wound me.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like that's why I think a lot of people are afraid. Like look at any
This is a good
relationship.
topic.
You're afraid to just open up and be truly vulnerable. And that's what I feel like for me. Like there's probably gonna be a lot of people that watch this and they're gonna be really concerned about me. But it's like I know I'm on the path that I'm supposed to be on because I'm here right now, and I'm at peace with what's happening.
Yeah. If you were still in ministry school or doing whatever you were doing, you'd be in a worse place.
Yeah, I mean it's just part of the.
You'd just be delaying the inevitable.
It's part of the process, you know. But it's just like I love the idea of like developing and pouring into people and getting to a place of like true vulnerability where it's like, oh man, like they start opening up about the deep dark stuff that it's like, because it's, man, like I grew up in it. It's like some people, they want to pull it out of you. They want to know like, hey, I mean, like the whole Catholic Church has confession. Like it's like you just go confess your sins to a stranger. Like I can't think of anything more uncomfortable. Like, but it's like, but at the same time, when you're with like a trusted friend and you can tell them like the worst thing that you're going through. Like I have a couple of people like that in my life.
For sure.
And those are the most important relationships that I have.
Absolutely.
And I will do anything to maintain them.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, it's just building relationships in a way that, you know, you're able to go deep with people. And, you know, that's when you get to that whole kind of area of, you know, bear each other's burdens. Like, but like, that's just not something you just jump into day one. You know,
That's good.
I mean, some people can. I don't know. I wasn't that person.
Yeah.
The classic trust is, what is it? Trust is lost. I'm losing it. Trust is
Lost it.
gained like 1 ounce
It's hard
at
to
a
get
time,
it, but it's easy
but
to
it's
lose
lost.
it. Yeah.
Fool me,
a
fool me
gallon.
once, shame on you.
Can't get food again.
It takes a long time to gain trust and a quick time to lose it. There you go. That's
Nailed it.
Nice. Any final thoughts?
flawless.
We're at over an hour, believe it or not, and I'm keeping all that funny stuff in the beginning in there. So
Yeah. Final thought. Sean Kingston dropped bangers in 2008.
What the one?
Do we have-
I don't have a computer hooked up. We'll have to come back to that some other time. We can hook it into here and play it. All right, turn it off. I don't want to get copyrighted. I need to be able to monetize this episode.
Shout out Sean.
Yeah, all these billions of
Shout
dollars
out,
we're about to
Sean.
make.
Sick.
We're on a first name basis.
Nice. Well, everyone, thanks for tuning in. Love you. See you next time.